Shalom. I want to begin first and foremost giving all praises to the Heavenly Father Yahweh and His only begotten Son Yahweh Shai, whom the world ignorantly calls Jehovah and Jesus. The real name of the Father being Yahweh, meaning He exists. The real name of the Son being Yahweh Shai, meaning He delivers. I want to give all praises in the ancient Hebrew tongue or facing the east. Pa halal la Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai Ba'ashem Rakakwatash Barakatah Yahweh Barakatah Yahweh Shai, the water, Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai Bashim Rakakwatash. Double honors to the apostles, to the elders of Yasharala, Greatmillstone, and Shalom to the 144,000. Shalom to the elect of the nation of Israel, who are the descendants of the slaves identified as the so-called African Americans, Hispanics, Latinos, and Native Americans. My name is Maka'ala, and today I want to talk about the Shabbat, right, the Sabbath. Genesis 1 verse 16. And power made two great lights, the great light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. All right, the Lord he made the sun and the moon to identify when times come in. All right, when it's going to be a certain day, when it's uh when it's a certain time of the month. All right, so imagine this. Let's say you woke up from a coma. All right, you have no idea what day it is. You ain't got no internet, no nothing, no calendar. How are you supposed to tell what day of the month it is? Right? How are you supposed to tell if it's Sabbath? Right? How are you supposed to tell what month it is? All right, you can't. You can't because the whole world is so used to using these Gregorian calendars to tell what date it is. But these calendars are completely going off. All right, because people, these small hats still believe, they've always believed that the Sabbath is based on the Gregorian calendar, but it's not. Psalms 81, verse 3. Blow the trumpet in the new moon at the time appointed on our solemn feast day. It says other versions at the full moon on our feast day. All right, that goes to show you that the moon decides when the feasts come in. All right, they're decided by first by the new moon and then the full moon after that new moon. That's when the feast day comes in. And I'm making this video in response to this a comment board of my last camp. All right, I do the camps in Spanish. I don't do them in English. And you got these comments here. I'm just going to translate what he's saying right here. All right, it says, Shalom, I don't agree with the lunar Shabbat thing since it has no biblical consistency. All right, that's because he doesn't know the scriptures as well as he thinks he does. All right. He says there's not a single verse that says the Shabbat shall fall on day 8, 15, 22, 29 of the month. Again, he doesn't know the scriptures as well as he thinks he does. All right, he hasn't read it completely, so he has no idea. All right, that there are verses that support that the new moon decides when the Shabbat comes in. All right, and got here Ecclesiasticus 43 verse 6. He made the moon also to serve in her season for a declaration of times and a sign of the world. From the moon is a sign of feast, a light that decreaseth in her perfection. The month is called after her name, increasing wonderfully in her changing, being an instrument of the armies above, shining in the firmament of heaven. Right, that goes to show you that the moon decides when the feast days come in. And since the feast days happen on Shabbat, then that means the moon decides when the Shabbat comes in. All right. Feast days, if it was a mathematical equation, feast days equals Shabbat day. All right. Feast days equals Shabbat day. And then it says right here, the moon declares when the feast days are going to come in. So the moon declares when the Shabbat is going to come in. All right. And the feast days come in on the full moon. All right. And then after that feast days, they start decreasing. The light of that full moon starts decreasing. All right. It starts waning. Okay. The waning moon. And then it cycles back to a new moon where you don't see any moon at all in the skies. All right. So we already know by scripture, all right, that the Pesach is celebrated at the 14th day of the month at even. All right, and that is the first day of unleavened bread. All right, and that's a high Shabbat. All right, that's what they call a Shabbat the one. All right, the small head say Shabbaton. Okay. All right, the difference between a regular Shabbat, right here, right, you got here regular Shabbat, and then Shabbat the one. All right, Shabbaton, how the small head say it. All right, the only difference is that there's a feast, a feast days. You know, one of the feast days, Feast of Tabernacles. All right, or or the Pesach. All right, it's celebrated on the high Sabbath. All right, you got here John 19 verse 31. The Jews, therefore, because it was the preparation, all right, the preparation day, which is the 14th of the month, that the body should not remain upon the cross on the Sabbath day, all right, which is the 15th of the month, for that Sabbath day was an high day, besought Pilate that their legs might be broken and that they might be taken away. All right, so they wanted to kill them quickly, all right, and bury them before the Sabbath came in because of that law where you know a person is cursed if they're hanging on a tree by sunrise. Okay, so they wanted to avoid that, and they also wanted to bury Yahweh before the Sabbath came in because you couldn't work, you couldn't digging, preparing the grave or whatever that's counted as work. So they wanted to do that before the Sabbath came in. Right, so we already established that the new moon begins to count down towards the feast day. All right, Now you got here Luke 24, verse 1. Now upon the first day of the week, very early in the morning, they came unto the sepulchre, bringing the spices which they had prepared, and certain others with them. And this is after Yahweh was crucified. They buried him. So, right, so these women came, right? The Marys, right? They came to to put perfumes, spices on Yahweh's body in the tomb, but he had already been resurrected. All right, so that's that first day of that week. That was the 16th. All right, that was the 16th day of the month of that month. All right, and then after that, all right, let's say here that let's say the new moon was on the first. All right, this is the preparation day, the 14th, and then at even is the Pesach. All right, the evening portion of the 15th starts right here. All right, and then that evening, that's the first day of unleavened bread. All right, the 15th. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th. The 21st would be the seventh day of unleavened bread, and that would be considered like a Sabbath. And then you got the 22nd, which is also a Sabbath. All right, that's just a regular Sabbath. So you got those 2 days consecutively, which you don't work. All right. And now here's the final proof that the new moon is the beginning of the month and that it decides when the Shabbat comes in. All right, it's 1 Samuel chapter 20. All right, and David fled from Naioth and Ramah and came and said before Jonathan, what have I done? What is mine iniquity? And what is my sin before thy father, that he seeketh my life? And he said unto him, power forbid, thou shalt not die. Behold, my father will do nothing either great or small, but that he will shew it up that he will shew it me. And why should my father hide this thing from me? It is not so. And David sware moreover and said, thy father certainly knoweth that I have found grace in thine eyes. And he saith, let not Jonathan know this, lest he be grieved. But truly as Yahweh liveth, and as thy soul liveth, there is but a step between me and death. David basically told him, man, your father knows that you cool with me, that your father knows that we boys, all right? Your father knows how you feel about me, how we're like brothers. So he's gonna hide that he hates me, that he's trying to kill me. He's not gonna tell you that. All right. Verse 4. Then said Jonathan unto David, whatsoever thy soul desireth, I will even do it for thee. And David said unto Jonathan, behold, tomorrow is the new moon, all right, the first day of the month. And I should not fail to sit with the king at meat. But let me go, that I may hide myself in the field unto the third day at even. All right, to the third day of the month. All right, so so they made an agreement that he would go and Jonathan would go and tell Saul that he couldn't go because he had to go be with his family. It says verse 25, and the king sat upon his seat as at other times, even upon a seat by the wall. And Jonathan rose, and Abner sat by Saul's side, and David's place was empty. Nevertheless, Saul spake not anything that day, for he thought something hath befallen him. He is not clean. Surely he is not clean. And it came to pass on the morrow, which was the second day of the month, all right? The second day of the month, that David's place was empty. And Saul said unto Jonathan his son, Wherefore cometh not the son of Jesse to meat, neither yesterday nor today? And then Jonathan, he made that excuse, telling him that David wanted to go to his family. And then Saul got mad at him, and so Jonathan rose from the table in fierce anger and did eat no meat the second day of the month, for he was grieved for David because his father had done him shame. So there you go, man. All right, this chapter, 1 Samuel chapter 20, establishes that the new moon decides when the first day of the month comes in. All right. Then after that it's the second day, and then the third day, and so forth. And on the 14th day, if it's the first month of the year, all right, that would be Abib. That's when you celebrate the Pesach. All right. That's when you celebrate the Pesach. The 14th day of the month, that's the preparation day. Then at evening, it technically becomes the evening of the 15th day of the month. That's when you eat the Pesach. All right, because you can't cook on the Sabbath. All right, that's why you got to prepare it on the 14th. All right, before sundown, you got to prepare it, make sure it's cooked. All right, and then you put it to the side and wait till sundown, and then you eat. And that would be the feast of unleavened bread, first day of that would be the Pesach, and also the first day of unleavened bread. Okay, so I mean, if you ain't have if you was in a coma, you woke up and you had no way to keep track of time, you had no idea what day it was, and then you had to celebrate the Pesach. That's how you would do it, man. All right, you would go by the moon. All right, it's a new moon, and you count 14 days from a completely dark sky when that's the new moon. You don't see no moon at all. That's you count from there 14 days. Then that's the day of preparation, and then the next day would be a Sabbath. All right, so then those days are the Sabbaths. The full moon that's almost always a Sabbath. All right, and the full moon comes always 14 days after the new moon. All right, so anybody says that that they don't understand if they don't understand the lunar Sabbath, they just you got to understand the feast days. When you got to understand when the feast days come in according to the new moons to understand the lunar Sabbath. All right, so I'm gonna leave it there. I hope the video was edifying. Shalom.